Hey Charles, how are you?
Hey Nam, good to be here. Welcome to We versus the Agents. One of the biggest things about AI is that there are no AI experts, really. So that helps me from the imposter syndrome because, like the rest of you, I'm just trying to learn this stuff on the job. And I think that the way that you become an expert is you talk about it, listen to other people talking about it, and form your own opinions.
Yeah, the cool things about AI is new things happening every day. If you look at the news, almost every day you will see some big updates from the model builder. In the past few weeks, you've probably seen GPT-5 introduction, Claude Opus 4.0 from Anthropic, and Charles, what do you see as the most impressive news in the past few weeks?
Yeah, last few weeks is a long time. So, yeah, definitely one of the challenges is keeping up to date. So let's recap the news quickly. So I think the big news is GPT-5. So there's finally a new version of GPT, and actually it was met with lots of backlash. Did you keep up on that, Nam?
Yeah, for sure. So what's happening was GPT-5 will release, and then everyone was so excited to use it, and then suddenly they want GPT-4 back. So I think it's something that's interesting to talk about. Do you see the same experience as many other users, Charles?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm not a huge fan of the new ChatGPT, GPT-5, and I think the problem for me is that the routing. So one thing that people had complained about a lot was that OpenAI's app had so many models. So I never knew to choose O3 Pro or O3 or 4.1, 4.5, all of these things. The only thing I knew was never use one of the mini models. Like that's only for free users.
Yeah,
But it sounds like
yeah,
GPT-5 like will automatically route me to mini a lot of the time. But it's tough to see.
yes. Well, I think it's a trade-off when it comes to product design, right? When you have a lot of user, some of the user want it to be fast, and some of the user want it to be very detailed. So I think it's a trade-off that the product team at OpenAI has to make in order to make the user happy. And then it just feels like a wrong decision from them.
Yeah, and I think that's what the big jump that Anthropic was ahead on was. So actually, this whole intelligent model routing is something that, if I understand, Claude has been doing for quite some time now. So that was a big jump to 3.7, was I was able to like figure out which model to use internally.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me too, I would have to admit that I'm a Claude fanboy. I've been with Claude Pro since the very beginning, and I think what they pay a lot of attention into their chat app. So everything is so well crafted, especially tools call and longer chain of thoughts and chain of tool calling. When you compare to between Claude and ChatGPT, and then I feel like there's a big trade-off there. So
Yeah, we can talk about this a little bit later. So in this podcast, I think we have a structure planned where we talk about news, then we do like a case study, and then we do maybe a foundational concept. I think the distinction between chat models and like the models, so GPT-5 and GPT-5 chat are actually slightly different things. And I think lots of normal people don't understand that distinction. But long story short, I think the big reaction is that GPT-5 chat model is tuned differently than GPT-4o was in that it's like less friendly, less, they say sycophantic is what Sam Altman said, but less like, making you feel like you're the smartest person in the world. But I think people really like that. And that personality tuning is what kind of the chat model represents. So GPT-5 itself, like the foundational model, is much stronger, but somehow like the personality is much weaker. And it's really funny to see people react to that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I've been watching a few videos about personality crafting. Apparently, all the chatbot they're trying to create a personality layer above the foundational layer. So I think that's pretty cool. So for Claude, I think they was trying to create a female personality
It's
where
interesting.
she focuses on details a lot, and she tries to explain things that is sympathizing with the person who are asking. So I think it's really cool when they do that. For ChatGPT, I think it goes back to the San Francisco Valley mentality. You gotta be there's a lot of hype. I would have to admit, I saw a lot of hype answer from them, and then there was a way to be try to be techno optimist when I asked question about technology and all that stuff, and I think it's something is evolving still in the chat model layer. But yeah, I think there's a huge customization in there in that.
It's true though, like right, like I think that it feels different to a user, and I wonder how much that really matters in terms of adoption. Like I think that's whole Gemini's problem is that the whole adoption thing is like like Gemini feels different, right? So and people don't really like using it. Seems like I never see people talking about it, and I think it just has less emotive power.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, right? So a lot of my friends always complaining about the quota of each chat app. They never complain about Gemini because they never run out of quota for Gemini.
Hey, by the way, do you know why it's called Claude?
No.
It's actually named after someone named Claude Shannon. So Claude Shannon is the father of information theory. So an old
But
scientist. So all these new models, all these like additional capabilities, what it comes down to is it's getting better and better at really understanding what people want. So I think if you think about intelligence, there's a lot of ways to define it. I think you can do tests like, like humanities last exam or coding benchmark things based on problem solving. But I don't know. I always think about this one example. Actually, there's a study. Like, do you think monkeys are more intelligent or dogs are more intelligent? No.
well, on the top of my head, it's obviously monkey because it's
Yeah,
more associated with human, right?
exactly. So monkeys are obviously like sort of more intelligent from an IQ perspective, but it's very easy to craft a problem solving exercise, like or like a test that monkeys cannot solve. Do you know what that test is?
No idea.
Yeah, the monkeys will win on like, IQ tests or tool calling, this kind of stuff. But actually, if you confront a monkey with a problem, like I forget the exact, I should look this up, but the exact test was like in order to get out of the room, they had to ask the human to like press a button to open the door and like get the prize. And
Hmm.
monkeys never figured that out. And dogs
Well,
figured out instantly. Dogs figured out, oh my gosh, I cannot open this door. I need to like go look at this human and like look very sad and like convince this human, like wag my tail and convince this human to press this button. And so if you think about that, actually, like although monkeys have more power, like their impact in the real world can be limited. And I sort of think about today, like if you look at maybe planet Earth as a species, I would argue maybe dogs have become more successful than monkeys. The average monkey's life seems very terrifying and difficult. And the average dog, at least as I know it, and if you look at my dog is somewhere around here, they live great lives.
well, I think it's it also from my perspective, it's also come from pattern recognition, right? If you look at dog training, there's a lot of proper material and a lot of experimentation on how to train a dog properly, because dog recognize pattern really good. And I think for more
Yeah.
generic and unpredictable scenario, probably cannot perform as well as monkeys.
Yeah, but okay, the other thing too actually is that, sorry, that's what the point I was going into intelligence wise. So dogs are also immediately much more empathetic and they have better emotional intelligence. Meaning like if you look sad, the dog will come over and understand immediately what's happening and has much stronger sort of pattern recognition around emotions. And when I think of these models and the vibe coding stuff, so when I think about developing intelligence, uh, we can think about like what's actually happening under the hoods with the ones and zeros. But what's happening with me in the vibe coding stuff is it's just getting very much better at understanding what you want. And it could be pattern recognition, it could be lots of things. But before, like when you ask the bot, hey, build me a website, it would like sort of do it. But now it's like getting so much better at guessing what you actually want. you talk about prompt engineering, and I just think that we're getting so much closer to the point where prompt engineering is becoming largely irrelevant because,
Yeah.
of course, you need to tell it, like, you need to give the information, but you don't need to format in a specific way. You don't need to say it like, oh, let me make you a PRD. Let me like make you bullet points. Like, it just kind of understands what you want.
Yeah.
And
I
as a
think
result, sorry, go
there's
ahead.
also a developing thesis called anti-prompts. So all of the chat model would eventually become anti-prompt. Whatever you input, they will reject them all, and then they will convert your text input into their own prompts, and then they instruct the foundation model. So I see a few here and there engineering teams trying to do that because they assume user will always know prompting, and then it's not worth the time uh to accept all kind of prompts. So they just reject everything, get the key messages, and convert into proper prompts for the model.
Yeah, and I think that's like the real power of fine tuning is understanding what prompts you need. So the first example I saw of that live is if you use VO, like generating videos, the default parameter for enhanced prompt is true, meaning by default, Google will rewrite your prompt because like who knows how to prompt videos, right? Like it's super hard to do that. And
Yeah,
the issue I've had with it is it's very expensive to learn because each video you're making costs it's 75 cents per minute. So each video, 8 seconds, or sorry, per second. So each video costs $6. And so it's like, you know, you try out 10 prompts, obviously, but that's
yeah,
$60 you just burned.
yeah. That's for sure, for sure.
But sorry, to get back to the topic. So on the vibe coding front, yeah, I think all these new models like GPT-5 seems much better at coding, but also as more people vibe code, the better the vibe code tools are getting. And I think we're sort of starting to see those gains. When I first started teaching the class, you could only build like very simple things. Now it's like the bots are able to really build much more accurately.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of a term that we usually use in our MBA class, which is de-skilling. So we usually use the word
Descaling.
upskilling,
Whoa.
yeah, upskilling a
Descaling.
lot. So in the past, whenever you wanted to do something new, you gotta learn, and then you gotta practice, and then you gotta and you try it first before you master it. But today with generative AI, mostly you can just do it, and then you can learn along with the AI tools, and then you can just build it yourself, especially with things that deals with the computers.
That's fascinating. I like that term, descaling.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you look at front end engineering, right? So before if you want a junior person to build you a landing page, that junior person has probably need to go through some sort of classes. They need to learn JavaScript and the whole ecosystem of front end development. But today, what they can probably do is just go to Lovable to create a prototype, and then they start from there. So it's sort of start from the middle, not start from the beginning anymore. So they're gonna those beginner skill is going to be depreciated because no one needs it anymore. I feel.
I mean, I think about that all the time because so when I was in my early 20s, this is a while ago, everyone. So I had a corporate job, but I've always been a startup person, sort of in my DNA. And so after work every day, what I would do is I would go home and build a landing page for a startup idea because I would have all these startup ideas. So my ideas were like, I remember one I was really proud of was I called it Stranger Dinner. And it was that you would meet different people in your city and have dinner together. This idea actually sort of exists today, I think.
It's like Tinder
Then
for
I
the
had an
net,
idea.
though.
Yeah, it's like Tinder for dinner before Tinder existed. I mean, it's like a weird idea, right? And I had lots of ideas. We had dog walking on demand. We had what was the other weird one? Anyway, I had a whole bunch of stuff I did. But like what I would do is like it would take like 2 or 3 days to build a landing page, and
Yeah,
I would just build it, and then you build it, and you try to get waitlist signups for it and stuff, and it would just be such a long process. And
yeah,
I think the interesting part about that for me is I would feel really proud of myself after building that page. but that's not the actual work, right? I spent all this time like doing HTML and CSS, but really like how much of that time did I spend testing the idea? Like, do people actually want this product? Not very much. And so with these new vibe coding tools, it lets you get so much faster to the actual important work, which is developing the product or service, the messaging around it, the branding, whatever you have to see if that idea is good instead of actually just like working on the plumbing.
Yeah, but for me, one of the things that I see a lot very often is people when they look at vibe coding, they only look at the output of the tool, but they don't really actually know what happens next, where they have to host the product. They need to do the maintenance and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of room for growth for vibe coding, because those skills, though they start in the middle, but from the middle to the end, the last 30 or 20% is something
It's hard.
yeah, you gotta spend a lot of time on it. Otherwise, it's not going to work the way you want.
What have you been vibe coding these days now?
So I was trying to find a lot of cool people to talk to. I was trying to build a tool to search for people that has similar backgrounds using
Ah,
especially for MBA programs. So because I just moved from Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi, I essentially knows not a lot of people here. So I was trying to search for people who went to the same school as I am today, which is Vin Uni, and then I start from there. But I think it's so fascinating, especially after the recent release of Vercel V0. I feel like they've done something quite interesting because a few weeks ago they're still using like plain short CN. The UI is exactly the same with the library. But if you try it yesterday, what they did was they give it a lot of mini touches to improve the aesthetic of the website of the UI. And I think those are the things that you mentioned before. They probably rewrite my prompts because my prompts sometimes are so stupid. But but I think what I've done is so interesting, and I feel a bright future for vibe coding though.
yeah, I actually, so I they're giving away $80 of credit every day to me right now because I was a paying member of V0 and like they just rebranded to from v0.dev to v0.app, right?
Yeah.
So I've also been using it. I can see what they try to do. So like now it like tries to get design inspirations before building your site, and they're really leaning into the front end design stuff. I haven't been super impressed though, to be honest. I think one for me, like one of the weird things is I'm still on. Maybe it's a sign that I need to buy a new computer. I'm still on like a MacBook Pro. Let's see. Let me look at the settings. It's from 2021. It's an M1 Pro.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, it cannot handle V0, man. Like my browser tab like starts crashing. It gets like too heavy on RAM, and like I actually can't run it. It's weird. Um,
Yeah.
so they have some sort of
Yeah.
memory leak in the app, at least the version I'm using. But when I develop locally with Claude Code, I don't have any problems.
Oh yeah, Claude Code is something else. I feel. Do you guys use Claude Code in your Vibe Code classes?
Yeah, so I can talk about that for how much time you got. If you have hours, I can talk about the sort of pros and cons. So I have been teaching a version of the class with Claude Code, and to be honest, I sort of regret it. Um, in my personal life, I use Claude Code 99% of the time. It's one of the greatest tools ever created, I think. And so I'm really excited to teach it. I think the sort of barrier to entry, though, the learning curve is too steep for a lot of people. So I've been sort of working on that, how we can make it a little bit more accessible. I'd love to go in deep dive on that. But yeah, for beginners, I actually would take the sort of strong stance that you shouldn't use it because all the stuff around getting it set up, doing all the early stuff, it's just so painful. And for a developer, we're used to that pain. Um, we went through 4 years of school before building anything useful at all. So we're like used to this like building up phase. But compared to something like Lovable or V0, where you get results in the first 2 minutes, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, I think what happened with Claude Code is it's mostly command line. So you gotta use the terminal. It found a the looks, the optics, it feels very technical for a lot of people. So maybe they're resistant in their mind that this is probably not for me. So they just not follow through with Claude Code. That's
Yeah,
what
and I think that's
I think. Yeah.
always the problem, right? Like the more powerful a tool is, the harder it is to use. And this is like a common thing across all disciplines. But yeah, I'll just share really quickly. Like V0 can make really nice apps, websites, this kind of thing. Yesterday, I used Claude Code, and I posted about this on LinkedIn to fix my Google Cloud deployment. So I've been sort of working with my engineering team for a long time on reducing our cloud costs. Claude Code is able to figure out how to reduce our cloud costs by like 70%. And that's not something V0 can do.
Yeah, yeah. I think that they've done a good job, but there are also trade off too, right? Claude Code, you got a very different setup and a very different pricing. If uh if you want to use Claude Code, you probably need to learn it. V0 is
Yeah.
you pay for the UX.
Yeah, and people have tried to build. There is something called Claude. I think it's called Claudina. It's a sort of visual UI for Claude Code. I really applaud the effort. I don't want to like criticize other people's work, but for me, it hasn't been that useful. Um, there's a bunch of ecosystems around Claude Code, and we'll see if one of these tools can try to make it easier to use without making it sort of more complicated at the same time. There's something
Yeah.
called Claude Kanban, which I think was also really interesting. But yeah, man, so far I think Claude Code is the king.
Yeah, me too. Or maybe the Queen. What are your
Cool.
take on what are your take on MCP and agents? Because I feel like Claude they were trying to be quite technical. You gotta build your MCP, but then when it comes to ChatGPT, they introduce agent mode. You just let us use your computer. You don't need to know what MCP is or whatever. So what are your take on that?
My take on that is it's obviously the direction everything is going to go. But as with most things, it's like, when are we actually going to get there? Um, and to me today, like the MCPs are such a practical way to get things done. Um, it's more reliable. I mean, computer use stuff is just not quite there yet. And the
Yeah,
analogy I try to make is it's like self-driving cars. We've been trying to build
yeah,
self-driving cars for almost 20 years now. Um, and it just takes steps. So in the first steps, you want a car that can sort of like accelerate and decelerate by itself. You still have to steer it. Then you can like, there's different stages to it. There's like 5 stages. So to get to fully autonomous cars where you can just like not even have a windshield and you don't even look outside, it's going to be a while. And I think that's what computer use is like.
yeah,
Maybe computer use is even not quite all the way there. But yeah, for now, the MCPs I think offer a good middle ground where you can still sort of like watch what's going on and have some insight. I built my own
yeah,
first MCP the other day, by the way. So I published it. No one's used it yet, I think, except for me. But I found it frustrating that in Claude Code, it's a little bit hard to generate images. And so I built an MCP for Claude Code to generate images automatically.
yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, yeah. I think I like the word middle ground. I feel like MCP approach is still quite in the last decade. I feel because everything is packaged. So when you use an MCP, you know what you can expect from that MCP. But I think the beauty of computer use is you don't need to package anything. It can sense its surrounding, and then it can take action based on the thinking process that it has. So it actually proved the intelligence of the model from my view. And I think that's probably is the final stage. And MCP is probably going away when the computer use reach a certain stage.
But that's the thing. I mean, there's like another quote I think about, which is people underestimate. people overestimate what technology does in 1 year and underestimate what it does in 10 years. And I think we're often very fixated on these like 1 year problems. Yeah, computer use could be a year away or 2 years away. Um, but I think it's like even like what's next is like, why do we even have computers? Like, I think
Yeah,
everyone always thinks about the end state as being more like the sci-fi movies of like Jarvis or Her. And yeah, why do I even need windows and menus and a mouse and keyboard? Like, we've been using a mouse and keyboard for the last, as long as computers been around, I think, since like 1980. So, if you just talk to it or think it or look at it, and I think that's like super interesting in the way direction they're going. The little OpenAI pin, you
yeah,
know, AR, VR glasses, these things. And I think, yeah, I think MCPs are a good middle ground because they're not tied to, like, that's the problem with computer use. Computer use assumes you're using like a computer with a screen, monitor, and keyboard and these types of constructs. And maybe where we're going, we don't need roads. Like, we don't need to have like self-driving cars because we can fly everywhere, like this kind of thing.
yeah. That's exciting future, but I think it's practically speaking, I feel we still have a long way to go in that future because if you look at the race today, everyone is trying to build their own thing. There's not a lot of collaboration between the big builder. If you look at Grok from Elon Musk, if you look at Sam Altman, OpenAI, they don't actually work together. And I think the ecosystem is still very far to go from here.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that they don't work together. And I think the thing that people aren't talking about enough, which is something you can talk about if you want to sound very knowledgeable, is that all these Chinese labs are also pumping out very cheap models. Like DeepSeek was only the beginning. And
Yeah,
I think right now, actually, like Quen is very close to state of the art. These things
yeah,
aren't quite as good as GPT-5, but if GPT-5 is worth $90 billion, like these things are not worth like 1% of that. I think they're up there and they're probably getting pretty useful. And at some point, being 90% as good as the best will still be like light years ahead of anything we had 2 or 3 years ago. And I kind of wonder what that future looks like as well.
yeah. But that's also the problem, right? Because when you want to improve your optics, you want to use Western model because the media was trying to push for them, and then the image of Chinese model sounds very suspicious in boardroom meeting because why do you want to work with Chinese and why are you using it? So I think that's a problem. I think that it's also the reason why Chinese lab they almost always have an open source version of their own model. You look at DeepSeek, Quant, and Binance also open source theirs. I think it's called Cdance. It's they open source their TikTok AI models, but it has to run on their own cloud provider. So yeah, this is a problem because when you want to use open source model, it requires a lot more capabilities inside a team. You don't just buy it and use it. You have to twist it.
Yeah, but I think also it's like, I mean, but it's still technology, right? So you can still, other people can come in and make it easy to run. It's a really great project, for example. I mean, Olama is like the biggest one. There's also another kind of tool that's really cool called Jan, which helps you run open source models locally very easily. So I think other people are kind of rushing into to help bridge that gap in the ecosystem. But the thing about Chinese stuff is so interesting, right? Because I agree. Like, I think it sounds a little bit controversial. So maybe it'll get us some controversy here, but yeah, I think people don't really today like using Chinese models. I think sort of like there's lots of questions about how that information is being used or sort of what was involved in creating it. At the same time, I think at the end of the day, people don't really care because I think this is what happens with manufacturing. Like I think today, like if something's made in China, maybe it doesn't feel quite as good.
Yeah,
Maybe you want it to be made in Italy or, you know, but today, like 90% of the stuff out there is all the commodity stuff. Everything's made in China. You can't get away from it. And that's what economies want. And I think with AI, that same thing could happen where it's, yeah, maybe you have a very premium thing. Or maybe someone tries to do something like, hey, this app was designed in California, but it's being AI like computed by Chinese models, like, kind of how Apple does with their phones. And I think that's got to be the way. If people can just perform this much more cheaply, I think that's the way it's got to go.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. But I think for any, but let's take manufacturing as an example. We need the right material, right? For AI, it's gonna be a lot of data. So
Sure.
obviously you want clean and good material. In this case, you want clean and good data. So I think data is coming from everywhere. But then where it's trained is something companies or people who are using it would care about. You look at Chinese. I read a paper where it says it talks about cultural bias in model. So basically what happened is all the Western model, they sounds like a middle-aged European person, very liberal. It was trying to sound politically correct, and that just happened
I
across
mean,
the
unless you're
board.
Grok. Grok sounds like an angry, like
Yeah, yeah,
16-year-old,
yeah.
like high school student. Yeah.
High school Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think the manufacturing part is something still very debatable because on the model they try to sounds the same most of the time. So it's something I think is going to be changed, especially for the sake of regulatory and maybe co-work is happening. Then model might probably become a soft power to uh, for people to actually influence the user. So it's going to be interesting.
It will be. It's a great time to be alive, Nam.
Yeah, that's for
I
sure.
just, yeah. I can't. I
So
don't
is
like.
it?
What do
Yeah,
you think we'll even talk about next week? Next week will be like, oh my god, like what
yeah.
what happened next month?
That's what yeah. Maybe yeah, yeah. What I'm hoping to see more is actually about a small model because I feel like for larger models or package models, I would call OpenAI and Anthropic as packaged model.
Hmm.
They um, they create a lot of resistance in usage, especially WebC, because when we discuss about how do we use AI in your company in the classroom in the MBA class, a lot of people mention about regulation, and then they have zero chance to audit the incoming data of those model. So I think what I'm hoping to see is the adoption of OpenAI 20B model. We'll to see how people are using it, and maybe I will try to do something with it, and then we can talk about it in the next episode.
Yeah, and that's also why I want this podcast to do really well, or some of my AI tools to do well, so I can buy a new laptop or perhaps even new like NVIDIA
Yes, for
clusters
sure.
so I can run these
Yeah,
things. Man, my M1 can't
yeah,
handle these
yeah,
models.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's the second time I complained about my
Yeah.
laptop in this podcast, so I think I need a new one.
Well, I think the trick that we did was actually just buy a Mac Mini, Max
Yeah.
option, so you can just run everything
Okay.
from there.
I should try that
So,
maybe. Yeah.
but yeah, maybe you can use my student discount
Ooh.
from Apple.
Okay.
Ooh,
Okay. Ooh.
all right.